Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guest, with your host, Christina Nitchman.
If you are an American and concerned about your family's health and safety, you'll not want to miss Savvy Central Radio's live interview and film screening with Dr. Gregory A. Smith, MD, producer of American Addict 2, taking place this November 6th and 7th. American Addict 2 digs deeper into the world of corruption, politics, and pharmaceutical greed. Tickets are limited for this private viewing, live interview, and Q&A, so get your tickets today while they last at bit.ly/AmericanAddict2. This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest today is Julia Wojnar. Julia is the founder of Unleash Your Presence. From a young age, unlike most people, she found public speaking to be thrilling. With over 15 years' experience on stage, she learned how to prepare, become mindful of her presence, and manage her nerves. Today, Julia shares with us some of the common myths around speaking and how to overcome your own fears around speaking. To find out more about Julia, visit her website at unleashyourpresence.com. Hi, Julia. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Christina.
Well, I'm very happy to have you on today because you are a speaking coach, and it's very, very important for anyone out there running a business or anything in life, whether it be from getting a new job to going dating. We need to know how to present ourselves in a very confident manner. So tell us more about your background, what led you to creating your business, Unleash Your Presence, and becoming a speaking coach.
Absolutely. So my background, Christina, is actually in communications. And along with that, I've had a lot of years where I'd been performing and actually doing shows and working as an actress. And so that's kind of a combination of those two worlds is how I came to speaking. And I was motivated to start my company, Unleash Your Presence, when I found myself at a crossroads. And I'd actually been working in a job which wasn't quite the right fit for me. And I found myself in a place where I was thinking about what my next steps would be. And it was at that moment when I realized that I didn't quite know what the future was going to hold for me, but that I just loved the newfound freedom that I had in having this opportunity to just create whatever it was in the direction that I wanted to go in. And it was with that new sense of freedom that I thought to myself, you know what, I should probably work for myself because I love having this freedom that I now have. And I saw that that was the way to really maintain that.
It's interesting. A lot of the guests that have come on in the past to Savvy, the number one thing I hear is that often it's crisis or being let go from a job that leads them to building their business. But the number one thing you hear afterward is that they're absolutely ecstatic with the freedom they now have in their life. And so now when you work with people, how exactly do you help people other than maybe someone else who's a speaking coach? What makes you unique in particular?
Yeah, so I typically work one-on-one with my clients, and I like to actually take them through the full process of prepping for speaking engagements. So I know that some speaking coaches kind of focus more on just content specifically, and other ones focus more on delivery. I like to actually combine it all so that my clients get a full experience of going sort of from 0 to 60, if you will, so that by the end of our work together, they're really ready to go rock their speaking engagement.
And from everyone you've worked with, what have you seen is like the number one thing that prevents people from confidently getting up there and speaking their message?
Yeah, I think the most common thing that I see with a lot of my clients is that public speaking is really just nerve-wracking for so many folks that they find, even if they are really experts in their field and have some great things to say, that they get so held back by their nerves sometimes that they just don't know how to tackle that when they're called upon to go speak. So that's actually the first thing that I work on with my clients is how do you manage those nerves and be able to confidently get your message across so that that energy working for you rather than against you.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think people's number one fear is regarding speaking? I mean, is it kind of like that walking down the street naked type thing? Do they feel vulnerable?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of the fear that comes up around public speaking is it's really similar to kind of the fear of rejection that people tend to feel, because I think they're really afraid that if they go up there and they make a mistake or they say something not quite exactly in the way that they intended, that the audience is going to reject them or think that they don't know what they're talking about. And really, I find that often what happens is just that folks, they really do have great things to say. And a lot of that fear is kind of all in their head. And once they're able to really craft their message, I find that the audience is really usually a lot more receptive than they might originally think.
And actually, I mean, I know from my own experience, when I go to see someone speak, I really don't want them to bomb on stage. I feel sometimes when someone's not doing their best, or I can feel their stress, I sympathize, and I'm like, I want to go up there and pat them on the back going, it's okay, it's all right, we love you.
Absolutely. And I think that's the truth, is that when you are going to see someone speak, just as you're saying, I say that the audience is really, they're on your side. I mean, even if you say something that kind of stirs them up a little bit, that there's a reason why they've come to hear you speak. And so they really do want you to do well. And, and that's the thing that I say to keep in mind, is that, the audience really does want to hear what you have to say, and they're really rooting for you.
Yeah, I completely see what you're saying. So what has been your greatest pull and why in creating your business Unleash Your Presence?
You mean like my biggest motivation for starting it? Mm-hmm.
That propels you forward, because a lot of people have these dreams. And what I find for a lot of small business owners is they get out there and they say, I have this passion, I have this talent, I want to bring it to the world. And very shortly thereafter, they kind of get busted up, and it's really, really hard building a business. And they end up going back and saying, you know what, this dream is not worth it. They're not propelled forward. And so what's your big why that keeps you on that train toward your passion and your why?
Absolutely. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about your why, because I think that's really the biggest thing that is, keeping folks going when you do hit those rough spots in business. It always, it happens to everyone. That why is what keeps you going. So for me, it's really being able to see my clients have a transformation and to show them that they can really become the type of speaker that makes an impact that they want to have and that they want to be, that it's possible for them. And when I'm able to witness the transformations that happen, it's just so gratifying to me and allows me to feel that I'm actually being of service. So it's that feeling for me that really keeps me going through those rough times, is kind of seeing the impact that has for someone.
You're so right about that, Julia. Getting clear on what your big why is before you get started, because you can have a passion and joy doing something, or even say, this is what I love to do, but there are going to be those rough spots when you first start your business, and to keep on that road, you're going to have to really discover what that really big why that you're even doing this for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So along your journey to creating your business, Unleash Your Presence, what's been some of your greatest hurdles or challenges you've come across, and how did you overcome them?
So I think one of the biggest hurdles that I face, as a lot of kind of small business owners typically do face, is just as you were mentioning before, I think you start off with that passion, and you really have, that's what keeps you going in terms of, the actual craft and service that you're delivering. But, sometimes there is that aspect of running a business, which is a whole other part of the equation that I think some small business owners don't quite put stock into in the beginning. And for myself specifically, I didn't have a business background. I didn't have any formal business education prior to starting my business. So I knew for myself from the moment that I decided to start my business, I actually invested in working with a business coach, as well as in other online programs to help me educate myself on really how one runs a business, because that was brand new to me. And I feel like there's always more to learn, but for me to really embrace that role of being a business owner, I had to make the decision to admit what I didn't know and take that upon myself to learn what I needed to know to make this really a business.
I like what you just said there. I had to admit what I didn't know so that I could go forward and learn it and then actually build a business. Because I think when I started, and many other people, when you start your business, you think I have this great talent, this great gift, and I will just launch it into the world and sales will come flying through the door. And you don't realize that there's certain things you need to know how to do, that if you don't have a good handle on, you're not going to have a business. So it totally makes sense that you first have to get a handle on all those different bits and pieces and admit what parts do I need to learn so that I can build a strong business.
Yes, absolutely.
So from your experience through building your business and even prior, what has been your greatest lesson learned so far that you could pass on to our listeners?
I think it's actually related to what I was just talking about in the importance of really investing in yourself. I know even from my first few days of really starting my business, I actually took it upon myself to invest in my education and in myself, because when you are, providing a service, you are, as I am, as other coaches are, you are that business. So the more that you can invest in yourself and learn more to compensate for the areas where maybe you weren't as strong or had more to learn, I think that's crucial. And I know that a lot of times it seems like a catch-22, because when you're first starting out, the finances may be tight, and certainly sales are even more important at that stage of the game. But I really encourage everyone to, in as much as you can, make it work for you. And certainly there's a lot of programs and coaches out there who will work with you in terms of, developing payment plans and making it possible for you to make that investment. I think it's so important, because without investing in yourself, there's really no way that you can grow and proceed more in your business.
I like that you just mentioned that, Julia. That brings to mind for me when I first started, my first business was a financial consulting business, and there were still elements I did not know in order to run it. So there was one woman who was doing what I was doing, and she was fabulous. And I just thought, I'll pick up the phone and just ask her if she'll give me some time to help me out with some questions. And she was, her time is money. I called her and she said, sure, here's where you can book a consulting time with me, either half hour or an hour. And I felt bad for a couple moments thinking, gee, I just wanted to pick her brain. What's her problem? Why won't she give me free information? And I then hung up and realized, wait a second, she has something of value that I need. She should get paid for it. But I think you make a perfect point, Julia, by saying that sometimes investing in yourself can feel like a stretch, but it's absolutely necessary to actually grow and build your business.
Absolutely. And I know that's been true for myself, where there's times that I've invested in working with coaches and with other professionals that may have felt like a stretch at the time, where I may have had to draw out that money out of savings or out of other sources in order to make that investment at first. But in the end, the return on investment was absolutely worth it.
So from your experiences as a speaking coach, what have you seen as some of the biggest misconceptions the public has about public speaking?
Yes. So I think the biggest misconception that I always see folks telling me over and over, Christina, about public speaking is that I think there's still this belief that public speaking is a talent that you're really born with or you're not. Some people are great speakers and others just aren't. And I know through the years that I've been speaking that it really is a skill, just like any other kind of skill that can be developed with guidance and with practice, that you can really go from maybe being not so great or a mediocre speaker to get to that next level with the right guidance and practice. So that's something that I always like to tell my clients, you may be starting from the point where you are now, but through focusing on it and really developing that skill, it is something that you can improve.
Mm. I like that you mentioned that as well, because I think even if you have a talent for speaking, there's still things you can improve to get your message out even clearer. And on the same hand, even if you are uncomfortable with it, as you said, step by step, you can learn the processes to get your message out clear. One of my past speaking coaches that came on mentioned even leaving a voicemail for a job interview or for a prospective client, that's speaking right there. So it's absolutely essential to get comfortable with speaking and getting your message out.
Absolutely.
So when you start with someone and they're brand spanking new and they don't really have a message really put together, can you help them get their message out there, like help them get clear on what they're all about?
Yeah, so that's a lot of what I work on in my signature program with clients is crafting their signature talk, which really encompasses what they're all about and what their message is. So that's absolutely something that I help them work through and develop.
I like that, Julia. I've gone to a number of places where someone said, hey, I want to be on your show. And we start talking. I said, so tell me, what do you do? How do you help people? Oh, I'm a marketer. Great. So how do you market? What do you do specifically when you sit down with a client? And they go on for about an hour. And I said, okay, can you just give me maybe in a couple sentences how you work with people? And they can't. And at that moment, I'm like, I can't have you on because you're not going to be able to get your message out. It's not going to be clear. It's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt our show. And so it's absolutely essential that they meet someone like you, Julia, so they can get clear on what their exact message is so they can get it out to the world and get their gifts out to the world. Now, what's your grand vision for your business in the coming year?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I primarily work one-on-one with clients now. So I'm looking forward to taking on more of those one-on-one clients, as well as hopefully doing some more talks and workshops in the coming months as that comes together to really reach more people in that way.
And from your experiences with your clients, has there ever been someone that was really, really difficult to train? And how did you overcome and get them through the challenges?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I've seen with clients, and in particular, I always really look for clients who are passionate and really committed to the process of improving their speaking, because even if it's something that they may not feel confident in the beginning, if they're willing to learn, I think that's the biggest thing that's necessary in a coaching relationship. And I've seen instances where, I could ask a potential client why they want to work with me, what is it that they're hoping to achieve out of our work together. And I typically get, some of the very business type of answers that they, want to increase their sales by improving their speaking. And certainly when they have speaking engagements coming up is typically the time when they'll seek me out. But I actually noticed through our work together that there are also more underlying reasons that they may have, which a lack of confidence sometimes is kind of that big factor that I think a lot of people won't necessarily come out and say initially, or they may have some embarrassment about that. And I can see it through our work together, but I feel that, from the time that we first begin working together to the point where we conclude our work together, that I've equipped them with the tools and the knowledge to transcend that lack of confidence that they may have had in the beginning.
And that makes sense, because if you're not very good at something, it's very possible that you're not going to be very confident in it. So that totally makes sense. Now, I found interesting what you said, that they'll tell you the normal business things of why they want to work with you, but there's often an underlining reason that you're like, it's not really that. Now, confidence you mentioned is one of them. Is there a reason that people don't tell you their exact reason, or is it just that they don't know sometimes, or as you said, maybe feel ashamed?
Yeah, I think part of it may be that it really does take some courage and vulnerability to admit, hey, maybe this is an area that I could work on, or that I don't feel confident about. And I do think, now and then there are people for whom that comes a little bit easier to admit, but I think for a lot of folks, we're kind of taught to put your best face to the world. So to even admit to someone that you have these weaknesses that you want to improve on does take a lot of courage.
It does, absolutely. I remember one guy came to me last year and he said, I want to start a show, my own podcast. And he said, what would be your number one tip for me getting started? And honestly, he stuttered a lot and kind of droned on and on and on. I could totally feel he was not confident in speaking, but understandably so. But I thought totally with the right coach that he could really learn to get his message out clearer and maybe even work through the stuttering and such. So my greatest suggestion to him was get with someone like Julia so he could get past that fear. Now, I want to thank you again for coming out to share all of your wisdom. But before we head on out, what would be your final tip to anyone out there who's struggling with speaking?
So my final words of advice to those out there who might be struggling, especially for those who have that great fear of public speaking, as so many people do, is to not really let that fear hold you back. I know that sometimes it seems like it's overwhelming, but just to know that speaking is a skill, again, that can be improved. And by investing in coaches or in programs that can help you develop that skill, that it is absolutely possible for you to overcome that fear and to improve it.
How can everyone get in touch with you, find out more about you, and all that jazz?
Absolutely. So I can be found over at my website, which is www.unleashyourpresence.com. And right there on my site, I have a link to set up a time to speak with me if there are folks out there who want to have a complimentary consultation. And there's also a link there to sign up for the audio newsletter that I put out every couple weeks, where I share tips and advice for those who are looking to improve their speaking.
Well, there's absolutely no reason for everyone to go out there who has difficulty speaking and give you a call today, since there's no charge to just try it out and see if you guys fit and get the help they need. So everyone, please go check out unleashyourpresence.com today. And I want to thank you again, Julia, for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Join our mailing list today by texting Savvy Radio to find out about upcoming guests and events and receive a free gift, how podcasting can help increase sales and influence in your business.
Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.